is the old house which belonged to our great-grandparents, Louis Dupré and Marie Gastal Dupré. I think this is the house where Mère Rousseau grew up. All I can remember that she told me about her parents were that they were very upset when she got married at the age of 13 or 14. Marie Gastal wished upon her a dozen children. Well, she did just that and more. She had 17. She told me that she had made 2 miscarriages. None of the sisters remembered ever hearing about that. But Aunt Elda's daughter, Ginger, told me several months ago that she knew about it also, and Mère had told her and Aunt Sis. So that confirms that. Today is February 14th, 1996, Valentine's Day. My mother and her sisters are going to meet at Aunt Alma Landry's in Pankerville. They're going to spend a nice day having lunch and reminiscing about old times. I'm going over there to try to get them to talk about as much as they can remember that happened to them when they were small, when they were growing up. This is in Baycorn. Now right across the bayou from here, can't see very much of it in the background, but this is where Uncle Gib lived. Gibbons Dupré was a brother to Mère. Lawrence Dupré lived. Mother, Icy Rousseau, Taunt Nice. Everybody calls her Aunt Nice or Taunt Nice. I want her to tell us what she can remember about this place. Okay, Mama.
Okay. This place here, I can remember my grandmother had a big pecan tree in her front yard. She had 3 back of the house. She had plum trees, peach trees, mandarin trees. And then I can remember when I was about 7 or 8 years old, I used to come over here. We used to sit on her long porch, and she'd always give me the order to go in the dining room, in the little cabinet. She had baked a big old tray of sweet potatoes, and I had to bring that so we could eat that on the porch. This was part of our time that we spent in the afternoon while we were at our grandmother. I can remember us coming here with our grandfather in a buggy and a horse.
Horse and buggy?
Yeah.
And Hilda says she can remember that too. What kind of a person was Marie Gastal?
Marie Gastal was a small person. She was petite. She was as good as you could find anybody. She was not a person to talk bad about nobody. She was nice to us. She loved all the girls. That's one thing I can remember. She loved all of us. Can I go further than this?
You can go further.
I can remember on her deathbed, okay? I was here, and I was about 13, I guess about 13 going on 14, and we all went to her bedside, and she told all the girls something. And I can remember what she told me. Some of my sisters don't remember that she told them anything, but I can remember she told me, nice, always be grateful to your mother. And I can remember she said, Adele, which was my mother, I can compliment you on your daughters, but I can't compliment you on your sons, because they are all so different from the girls. So I can remember a lot of other things. I can remember our grandpa, he used to love to hug us and kiss us, and we just hated it. We didn't like that.
Did they look like?
I could come out with.
Did they look like Mère Rousseau and Père Rousseau?
Père Rousseau? If I can remember.
No, did they favor Mère or Père Rousseau in looks?
If in looks?
Yeah.
If they looked? Okay. My mother was most on her daddy's side. My, that's all I don't remember. Most of them were on my daddy's side. I kind of picked up a little bit on my grandmother's side because I stayed small and short, but none of us looked too much like Grandma Dupree. None of us.
And Hilda says that she can remember she was a very prim and proper lady. If you went in there with dirty shoes, you had to take your shoes off before you walked in the house. She'd fuss at y'all. She liked her house to be real, real clean.
Oh, yes.
There were 2 fireplaces in that old house, right?
2 fireplaces. And she had a big dining room. That table was set. That was after each meal. That table had to be set with the plates and everything that they used to eat with, and a napkin, a white napkin. Everything was immaculate.
Where did she come from, Mama? Where did she meet Père Rousseau? And where did she come from?
Père Dupree, you mean?
Père Dupree, right.
I do not know. I think she was at a convent. I think it was in New Orleans that she had come there, and she went to school in a convent for sure, or she was partly raised there. I'm not too sure, but I believe.
But she came either down from France or Canada. You know where?
Her parents were from France.
From France?
Yes, Bordeaux. I think she was from Bordeaux, France.
Well, that's nice to know. And I'm going to stop for a minute, and I'll wait till we get to Aunt Alma's so that we can video all of y'all. Remember some more about Mère Rousseau and Père Rousseau. Okay, Mom?
Okay. I can remember Mama always told us that her daddy did not want her to have a love affair with my daddy. And she used to sneak away.
And he lived across this bayou?
He lived right across the bayou from from where my mother lived.
Uh-huh.
And she went to go across the bayou in a little pirogue, and she fell overboard. And my daddy is the one that saved her.
This is before they started going out?
Yeah, she was in love with him, but it was kind of a sneaky love affair.
Uh-huh.
Her mother did not mind it. Grandma Dupree. She did not mind my mother being in love with him, but my daddy did not want. I don't know the reason why. I don't know if it was because she
You mean Père Rousseau didn't want, right?
Père Dupree didn't. Père Dupree did not want my mother to be in love with him. So she used to sneak. But my Grandma Dupree was not against her for nothing. He whipped her. He punished her. He did not want to go to her wedding. He didn't want to have nothing to do with it. He did not want her to come back home and get her clothes.
What age did she get married? Was it
What year?
13 or 14? How old was Mère?
14.
14?
Yes.
And she got married at St. Elizabeth Church in Pankerville, right?
Yes, she was I think she was the first one to marry in the Pankerville Church.
She told us that.
And she had a son, which his name was Roy. He was born, she was 15 when he was born. So this made my older brother 15 years younger
Yeah.
than my mother.
Okay, in what order did they come? Uncle Roy was born first, then who else?
Uncle Roy and Uncle Tita, I think.
Aunt Belle wasn't before?
Roy and Bill, I think it was Roy and Tita. I used to say Roy and Bill, but I think it was Roy and Tita, and then Bill.
Okay, then who?
And then Aunt Hazel, and then Uncle Dad and an Alma, which were twins, and then Uncle Pico, then Aunt Hilda, then they had a little, they had put a little south, most probably, I don't know, but I was born in between Aunt Hilda and Leanna, I think. Now, as far as for my little brothers, that died before. I cannot remember what year they died in. I can't remember. I can remember the year that my last brother was born, okay? The one that's living now. He was born in 1924. And I can remember...
That's Earl.
That's Uncle Earl.
That's Earl.
And I can remember a lot of the things that we did, a lot of the things we played with, which I will put down on paper. Because my daughter, Kathy, definitely wants me to put down everything I can remember since I was a little girl. Okay?
Bayou where I grew up, road way down. At one time they lived on the other side of the bayou, but when I grew up, they were on this side of the bayou. But the house is no longer there. It's Aunt Hazel's house. She's getting ready to go and meet Hazel because we're going to Aunt Alma's. Nobody's there anymore. It's just gone to Pop. To the right. Uncle Piku Harold lived down there in Alma. We call her Aunt Gadoon, Goody. Mabel and Uncle Dodd, Addie's house. Uncle Dodd died a lot of years ago, but Aunt Mabel still lives there. House in Tankerville where they're going to be today.
Me?
Yes, you.
Oh.
That's you.
I'll start now?
Yeah.
Well, I'm Hazel Rousseau O'Quinn. And I was married to Eugene Pierre O'Quinn. And I forgot what I wanted to say.
That's okay. Take your time.
Take your time.
Your children.
And I had 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. Ellen, Wayne, Dale, and Nell. And I raised them. My husband died when he was 45 years old, and I raised them by myself. And I think I did a good job. And the reason why I did is because my mother had showed us how to face hard times.
That's what I was going to say. She went through the same thing as you did.
That's right.
And a beautiful word of ALMA.
And then what?
And then what?
And then we were 17 children, and we lived at home, and our daddy never wanted us to go out to work. But I used to go work at my grandmother for $1.50 a week. And I used to love to go there because I could ride the horses. I used to come on horseback and get the mail at Grand Bay every day.
Well, I'll be. So you know how to ride a horse?
Yeah. And my children are all married, and I've been living by myself for about 20 years.
Wait up. What do you remember the most about when you were a little girl, the good times, when you were small, when you were growing up?
Oh, well, I can't even recall the good time I had because we didn't have such a good time.
Y'all didn't go to
But
dances?
After we were teenagers, we didn't go to dances, but we had Victrola at the house, and we had little dancing parties. And we used to have swimming parties. We lived real close to a bayou at Grand Bayou, and we used to have swimming parties.
Where did you meet Uncle Gene?
Oh, I met Uncle Gene.
There was
True, where I met Uncle Gene. Well, they came and spent a day at my mother's house. That's where I met him. And I've been in love with him ever since then.
Well, I'll be.
And I waited for him for 15 years, which I don't regret.
What are some of the songs you remember that were popular when you and Uncle Gene were going out or just married?
I can't think right now.
Can't think? Okay, I'll get back to you later. See you later. Deanna, what year did you get married, and who were you married to?
I got married in 1946, and I married Jose Paul Scheck-Snyder. And he lived in Baton Rouge at the time. That's where I met him.
He was foreman at the time? No.
No, he was just out of the service. I had met him on a blind date one night in Baton Rouge through a friend of mine. And from then on, we just started dating, and I married him about 7 months after I met him.
And had a bunch of children. How many children?
We had 6 children, 5 boys and one girl. And I have 7 grandchildren.
Oh, I didn't see
5, No, I have 9 grandchildren, 7 boys and 2
I'm
girls.
gonna be the last one to talk.
And we lost one little granddaughter in, I think it was 1980, 81. I'm not sure about the date of her, when she died.
What are your children's names, Aunt Tati?
Ronald Paul, Barry Joseph, Michael Craig, Cynthia Lee, David Brett, and Scott Stevens.
Okay. And Hazel talked about some of the things when she was growing up, and you know any sneaky things that were done when y'all were growing up?
Well, not exactly sneaky things, but I remember how strict my mama was. And one day, we had to wash clothes. We each had our turn to do the washing, the cooking, and the scrubbing, and the ironing, and this and that. And I can remember one time that I was washing some clothes underneath the window in the back, in the yard, and she took an old coat, and she shook that coat right over my head, not knowing that's what I was washing. And the roaches crawled all over me, and when she did that, I used some curse words, and she came out, she slapped me on one side of the face, she said, say it again, and I said it again. She slapped me on the other side.
Who taught you those curse words?
Well, when you live with a bunch of brothers, you learn them. And one thing that I remember when I was growing up, I don't remember how old I was, but I remember that they had a raid. The FBI agents raided
Alcohol.
They raided some bootleggers. And
Who used to bootleg that you remember? Who did that?
well, the bootleggers, I think they were Templars. But Gus LeBar and Landry was involved in that. And one night, Gus LeBar came during the night and asked one of my brothers if he would go work with them. They were short of workers or something. So he asked him, he said, come and work with us for a few hours. So he did. He put his clothes on, but he put on some high knee boots like, and he tied them at his ankle.
Was that Pico?
That was Uncle Pico. And while they were going to work, they had a bend in the river, and they had a bridge where they would unload the barges that came in with the alcohol. And while when the bend was in the river, they used to give them a signal with a flashlight or something if it was okay for the barge to come in. Well, the FBI agents knew about, they had already scouted that area, so they knew what was going to take place. So when they flashed the flashlight, they gave him the signal to come in. But when they came in, as far as the bridge, the FBI seized everything. They started dumping the liquor in it was pure alcohol in like 5-gallon cans. And they started shooting at the people because they were jumping into the water. And Uncle Pico was one. After he jumped into the water, he couldn't swim because of his boots were tied at his ankle, and the boots would fill with water. So he managed to get to the bank, and he stayed at the bank under the water lilies, and everybody was accounted for hours after that, and Papa hadn't yet located where Uncle Pico was. Nobody knew where he was. So he started walking the bayou banks, and he found him. He happened to see his eyes through the water lilies or something, and he saw where he was. And when he finally got out of the water, he was all shriveled up. He had been in the water so long.
Did your daddy know that he was gone?
Did my daddy know that he was gone?
Yeah, that Uncle Pico was gone.
Well, I think he did, because by that time everybody had been accounted for, and he was the only one that was missing. So he started searching for him along the bayou banks, and that's where he found him. Probably a lot of other things I could recall, but...
How about like after Papa Rousseau died? What do you remember when Mama was just there raising y'all? Can you remember anything about you and Aunt Sis or something like that? And Elder's the one, and Elder died.
I remember that we had high water 2 different years, and one year that Papa had typhoid fever, and we lived here in Canada. And I remember when we went back to Grand Bayou, that was the old house across the bayou, not where Mama lived in her later years, that the chimney had fallen down, and we went over there to take all the bricks out and everything. And I remember that while we were taking the bricks out, they had a rattlesnake in the bricks.
Good grief.
There's a lot of other things like that.
Mama says she remembers y'all beds were up on stilts. Like, how did y'all sleep in the house when there was water in the house during high water?
I remember our beds on stilts. They used to raise them up some.
Yeah.
But the one time, both times that we had to move, the water came into the house. You know, the house,
Yeah.
the water had gotten in the house, so we had to move.
Yeah, that's why you moved to Pankerville.
And we moved one time in one house, and the next time we moved, it was right next door.
Those houses are still here in Pankerville and his, or none of that's here?
Mr. Hibiscus house, the big house.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Right there where Mr. Biscuit House was. Right across
And
there.
Hazel forgot to see how many grandkids she had too, so I'm gonna get her now to see how many you have, Aunt Hazel.
I have 17 grandchildren, and I have 18 great-grand.
So we're getting ready to have a family reunion on June the 8th. You can about imagine how many people are gonna be there. I hope we have a real good turnout.
I hope so too.
Me too.
My husband died in 1975, and I've been a widow ever since. When my husband died, my son David was still in college, and my son Scott was living at home with me. And since then, they've all married and moved away. I never did say about who they had married either. Did you want that in it?
No, it doesn't matter. We're probably gonna get a lot of these people on video when we get the reunion. But if you think about something later, we'll put you back on.
Okay.
Okay.
All I can think about now, my memory's not.
How old are you right now, Aunt Todd?
I'm going on 81.
Oh, Lord.
How old I was?
I know, but I'm about to get you.
November the 13th, 1995.
Good grief, and she's still driving around. She even comes get her hair done.
And I still do all my work, and I live by myself.
Good, good, good. My mother taught y'all a lot then, huh?
She sure did. She was rough, but it meant a whole lot.
She taught y'all how to work, play, and pray, because I know that rosary, we still remember her every night, praying for all of us. Anything we had, she was praying for us.
That's right.
Okay. Here's my mama and Aunt Belle and Aunt Hilda. My mama doesn't like to talk too much.
You didn't get Aunt Hilda yet.
I'm gonna get her. Uh-huh. Here's my Aunt Hilda. This is where, when I was a little girl, I used to go spend quite a few weeks in the summertime. Me and Jessica ain't.
Is it my turn?
Yes, it's your turn. I got you on film.
Huh?
Yes.
Your turn.
Am I supposed to tell you who I am?
Tell me who you are and who you
My
married.
name is Hilda R. Rousseau LeBlanc,
How old are you?
and I'm 83 years old.
Good grief.
And I feel like I'm 90
You don't look it.
today.
Who were you married to, Aunt Hilda?
I was married to Clarence LeBlanc, and he lived in Donaldsonville. He was born in Donaldsonville and raised in Baton Rouge, and I was born in Grand Barajas. Grand Barajas?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's where I lived until I...
Yeah, she fell off the horse in the water.
She fell off a horse in the water, did you?
Yes.
Did you fall off a horse into the water?
I think so.
Yeah.
When?
I don't
You
remember.
and Aunt Hazel.
A long time ago. Like maybe 70 years ago.
How did you do that? You didn't know how to ride it?
Aunt Hazel. You and Aunt Hazel.
Something like that.
That was in Grand Bayou?
Remember?
Y'all were in Grand Bayou, Aunt Hilda?
It was...
Were y'all in Grand Bayou when that happened, or Bayou Corn, or where?
You're in high water. They brought you. You're in high water. Aunt Hazel brought you all the way to where Dow Chemical, where we
Oh,
went to
yeah,
the reunion.
okay. I was leaving the country to go to the city. And that's where I met my husband.
Oh.
And I fell in love with him. And I married him. And I had a son, one son,
Buddy?
and I have a granddaughter, and I have a grandson, and that's it.
Right.
And I live in Baton Rouge.
And I remember they called you Mimi and Papi, right?
Call me Mimi. And I love them too much.
That's natural for grandparents, huh? That's good. You think about something else later. We'll get back to you. Okay? Here's Aunt Belle over here, but I don't think she's ready to talk. We'll get her later on. But here's our nice Aunt Belle from Bayou de
I
Lodge.
can't give you any history because I can't think right now.
I know.
Okay?
I know, but you're going to think about something. Can you remember stuff about you and Aunt Elda?
Yes.
What can you remember about y'all?
Her husband died, and she lived in Baton Rouge, and she and I
got to be like two peas in a pod. We were sisters and friends. And we did a lot of things together. And I miss her very much.
We all do, huh?
And am I going to be on film?
You're on film right now, but you want me to stop it a little while?
It's not candid camera.
Uh-uh.
No?
Uh-uh.
Okay.
It's the same thing.
Can you remember things when y'all were growing up, like you and Aunt Tati and Aunt Sis? Things y'all did?
Yes. Oh, yes. A lot of things. A lot of things that you wouldn't believe.
That's what I want to hear about, the things that we wouldn't believe you did. Right.
Well, there was an old lady that lived in Grand Bahia, and we used to go get some gum out of a gum tree. And do you remember that?
You mean gum came off of trees at that time?
A tree, and this old lady, we used to get the gum, and we used to go sell it to her. She'd give us a nickel for it. And when we'd come back home with the nickel, my mom was waiting for the nickel.
Y'all had to give it to her?
Yeah. Okay.
I can't
Ask me
believe.
something else.
To work when you were a young girl, how did y'all earn your money besides picking gum off the trees?
Well, we picked moss. They had a moss den in Grand Bahia. And before they refined the moss, you used to have to get the sticks out of the moss.
Uh-huh.
Okay? And this is what we used to do. We used to get up like at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning so we could beat the crowd, because there were so many people that wanted to do this.
Uh-huh.
You see?
You remember how much money y'all made for this, Aunt Hilda?
Maybe $1 a day.
Good
Maybe
grief.
less. But my mom was waiting for it.
Every penny y'all earned had to go back to my mother.
And we had to turn it over to her. But that's okay because
She was raising 12 children.
because we didn't have any. The only thing we could do with it would be go to the store and buy candy with it. And I don't think we was allowed to buy candy.
What store did y'all have that
Well, the Mr. Hebert, Eunice Hebert
Uh-huh.
store
in Grand Bahia?
in Grand Bahia. And I can remember that they had a conville.
I remember that.
You know what a conville?
My daddy used to gamble there.
And they gambled. The men on the weekend, the men would gather up and they'd start playing poker. And they played poker all day, all night Friday night, all day Saturday and Sunday. And when they came home, everybody was mad at them for losing their money.
Oh, Lord. I know Mama was mad at Daddy plenty of times for that.
Okay, what else?
Oh, and how much schooling did you have?
School. Okay, where my sister Hazel lives now, that was our school.
Uh-huh.
And we had from the 1st to the 5th grade, and we had one teacher.
Who was y'all teaching?
Well, different ones.
Uh-huh.
Florence LaBar was one, and Betsy LaGard was one, and I believe Gleason Dugas was one. We called him the professor.
Mm-hmm.
And, okay.
So that's where you learned everything you knew?
That's who taught me how to read and write. And then, after I moved to Baton Rouge and was going to establish, I went to adult school. And I finished school.
Oh, great.
I graduated.
That's great. Well, Uncle Earl, he's not here today. I wish he was, but what can y'all remember about him? He must have gone to, he went 12 years of school?
He and my sister Elda went to school more than all the rest of us.
Uh-huh.
Okay?
Because there was no transportation.
My sister Sis didn't graduate. But my brother Earl did. He finished school. He graduated.
Yeah, Uncle's the only one.
Then he went into the service.
And he went to the service. And he
And
came back.
well, him and Uncle Piku were both in World War II, right? Because
Right. Okay.
I was born in 1946, and I know Uncle Earl got out of the service either just before or, no, it had to be after because
Well, the war was,
the Battle of Hiroshima and all, wasn't that in 46? D-Day and all of that? So I think he must have been after 46 when he came
Uncle
up.
was in that war.
Well, yes, he was.
Yes, he was, yeah.
But he didn't go to France. But he was
No,
in
but
the
he
Pacific.
wasn't in
then.
the European theater. He was in the Japanese
He was
theater.
in,
He was in the Pacific.
Yeah.
Uncle was in the Pacific.